Hello everyone, welcome in my channel. Please subscribe and keep watching more details. Jinger Duggar details inspiration behind her new book, People Pleaser, recalls not so healthy path. I realized I was a people pleaser from the time I was a teen, Duggar, 30, revealed during the Wednesday, September 25, episode of her and husband Jeremy Vuolo's The Jinger and Jeremy podcast. She recalled being so concerned about what other people thought about me. That desire to please others, it led me down a not-so-healthy path of just not wanting to eat that much food because I was afraid of being too fat, Duggar continued. I was so worried about what other people would think if they thought of me in a specific light, she told her husband, noting that was part of the inspiration of her book People Pleaser. Breaking Free from Imaginary Expectations, which is available for pre-order. The Counting on Alum said she realized her people-pleasing tendencies around the time she married Vuolo, 37, in November 2016. Now that she's a mom, the couple share daughters Felicity, 6, and Evangeline, 3. Duggar has noticed that it's easy to go into a shell trying to protect everyone's feelings while neglecting her own. There is people-pleasing that shows up in everybody's life, every single day, and I think that's why now is the time to write this book, she told her listeners. It's such a problem, and it will always be a problem. Duggar noted, we see it even more with social media. Young people are just constantly comparing themselves to others and trying to have this perfect image. The former 19 Kids and Counting star, who gained fame while starring on the TLC reality show with her 18 siblings, teased that the answer to overcoming this issue is not to alienate yourself. We need to be in a community. The answer isn't just to run away from people, Duggar explained. It's realizing that we need to have hearts that are focused on who we are made to be in Christ. From that overflow, then we can go and serve other people. Vuolo beamed with pride as he applauded his wife for being so open in the new book, which hits bookshelves in January. You deal with the issues so head-on. It's a really personal way, he teased. During the podcast, Duggar also shared a promotional video about the book. She said that her type of people-pleasing was motivated by a fear of rejection and disliked and not fitting in. She confessed that it led her to be silent when I should have spoken and cower to bullies. I didn't want to risk their wrath. I didn't want their anger turned on me because I'm a people pleaser, Duggar said. The reality star admitted that the cost of living like this has been high, noting that some of her friendships and relationships were negatively affected because she was afraid to mess up. Despite feeling trapped for years, Duggar told her fans, there is freedom from the bondage of people pleasing. She identified hope in the promise of Jesus, sharing she turned to God at the start of her journey. I know where we can go for help, Duggar promised. She added that with her book, she hopes it'll help readers not feel so alone and help you discover the path forward. Jinger Duggar Vuolo, once known for her role on the popular reality show 19 Kids and Counting, has recently opened up about the deeply personal inspiration behind her latest book, People Pleaser. In this candid memoir, Jinger takes her readers on an emotional journey, reflecting on her upbringing, her struggles with identity, and how she finally found the courage to step away from the patterns that shaped her life for so long. Through the lens of vulnerability and growth, Jinger details her battles with being a people pleaser, especially within the context of her strict religious upbringing. Raised in the famously conservative Duggar family, Jinger's early years were defined by rigid expectations, both from her parents and the faith community that surrounded them. From a young age, she was taught to prioritize obedience, submission, and self-denial, values that became the cornerstone of her identity. However, as she grew older, she began to realize that constantly bending to meet the expectations of others had led her down what she calls a not-so-healthy path. The early struggles of being a people pleaser, growing up as one of 19 children in the Duggar family, meant that Jinger was always surrounded by others, siblings, parents, and of course, the millions of viewers who tuned in weekly to watch her family's life unfold on television. With such a large family came a unique set of dynamics, where standing out or voicing individual opinions often seemed secondary to maintaining unity and upholding the strict family values. In People Pleaser, Jinger reveals how, as a child, she internalized the unspoken pressure to be perfect, always striving to fit the mold her family and faith had carved out for her. I wanted to make everyone happy, she writes. From my parents to my siblings to the people who watched us on TV, I was always trying to be the version of Jinger that I thought others expected me to be. But in doing so, I lost sight of who I actually was. Jinger recalls how this mindset began to take its toll, leading her to question whether her actions were driven by her own beliefs and desires or simply by the fear of disappointing others. Her natural inclination to avoid conflict, combined with the Duggar family's emphasis on submission and obedience, created a perfect storm of self-doubt and insecurity. Faith and fear. The complex relationship. Central to Jinger's struggle was the complicated relationship between her faith and her fear of disappointing others. Growing up, her family was deeply rooted in the teachings of Bill Gothard's Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP, a fundamentalist Christian organization that placed heavy emphasis on authority, modesty, and strict gender roles. Within this framework, Jinger was taught to obey without question, to suppress her own desires in favor of serving others, and to never challenge the status quo. In her book, Jinger reflects on how these teachings shaped her understanding of faith and self-worth. I was taught that being a good Christian meant following the rules, never questioning authority, and always putting others first, she writes. But what I didn't realize at the time was that this kind of blind obedience wasn't fostering a healthy relationship with God or with myself. Instead, it was making me fearful of failure, fearful of judgment, and fearful of stepping outside the lines. As she entered adulthood and married Jeremy Vulo, a former professional soccer player turned pastor, Jinger began to see her faith in a new light. With Jeremy's encouragement, she started to question the rigid teachings she had grown up with and began exploring a more grace-filled understanding of Christianity. This shift was both liberating and terrifying for Jinger, as it forced her to confront the deeply ingrained beliefs that had defined her for so long. Breaking free from the pressure. One of the pivotal moments in People Pleaser is Jinger's realization that constantly striving to meet others' expectations had left her emotionally drained and spiritually unfulfilled. She describes how the birth of her first child, Felicity, became a turning point in her journey toward self-discovery. Becoming a mother made me realize that I didn't want to pass down the same unhealthy patterns to my daughter, Jinger explains. I wanted her to grow up knowing that her worth wasn't tied to how well she pleased others, but to who she is as a person. Jinger's desire to break free from the chains of people-pleasing was further fueled by her move to Los Angeles with Jeremy. The city's diverse culture and openness to different perspectives gave Jinger the space to explore her own beliefs and values in ways she hadn't been able to before. For the first time in my life, I felt like I could breathe, she writes. I could ask questions, make mistakes, and figure out who I was outside of the Duggar family's shadow. In People Pleaser, Jinger speaks candidly about the challenges of navigating this new chapter in her life. She acknowledges that breaking free from the pressure to conform hasn't been easy, especially given the public scrutiny that continues to follow her family. However, she also expresses gratitude for the personal growth she's experienced along the way. It's been a long journey and I'm still learning, she admits, but I'm finally starting to understand that my worth isn't dependent on how well I can please others. It's about being true to myself and my faith. Encouraging others to find their own path. As Jinger looks back on her journey, she hopes that People Pleaser will inspire others who find themselves trapped in similar patterns of self-doubt and fear of judgment. I know I'm not alone in this struggle, she writes. There are so many people out there who feel like they have to meet everyone's expectations, who feel like they're not enough unless they're perfect. But I want them to know that it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to say no. It's okay to prioritize your own mental and emotional well-being.